Hello all, this is NaveenPrabhu. Today we are going to look at a game which played between Magnus Carlsen and Richard Rapport, which played in the Tata Steel Round 6 tournament. Let's go into the game. Here, the opening starts with the move Knight to F3. They go for the Queen's Pawn opening, that is D4, D5 and Knight to F6. And here Magnus Carlsen plays the move Pawn to C4 and he defends his D5 pawn with the move Pawn to E5, and Magnus as usual goes for the Catalan variation here. So he wants to push the pawn to G3 and put his bishop on G2 for some Catalan attacks. Here Rapport just captured the pawn on C4, and now Magnus goes for his plan of financiating his bishop on G2 square. Now he develops his knight here, and here he castles king side. Now he sees that the bishop is sitting well here, so that there will be some problem here if the knight and the bishop is moved from their position. So he just guards the pawn on B7 and also thinking of some pushes in this position. As you see a game before in this line, that is when the rook is here, Magnus actually plays his knight to A3 and attacks the pawn. In that position, he can't able to push the pawn to A5 and you have to give up the bishop in the position, which I have shown in the round 3 of the Tata Steel match, which Magnus actually played in that variation. Sorry about that, that is round 2 of the match. So Rapport just puts his rook to B8, stopping the idea of knight to A3 in this position. Now Magnus just puts his bishop to E3. He guards the D4 pawn. Not guards, just putting some security to this pawn. But actually, this position being reached only a few times. As you see, it is only reached 4 times in this Lichess database. So Rapport don't know what to replay in this position. So he thought for some 20 to 25 minutes in this position and played the move bishop to D6 in the position. This move has been the new move in this game. Let me close this. New move in this game. As of move 7, Rapport plays the new move in this game. This position has not been reached after that or earlier to the game. But actually there is one interesting variation before we have to look at the game. I want to show you that. That is, instead of bishop to D6, Magnus can also place the move bishop to D7, bishop to E7. Now this is the best engine choice which engine recommend, that is instead of bishop to D6 we have to play the move bishop to E7, and Magnus maybe something prepared like this, pushing the queen to C1 and attacking the pawn on C4, and you have to defend it by playing the move B5, and we can just attack the pawn by pushing the A4. You have to defend back by playing the move A6. Now we can actually capture it. He recaptures. Now we can actually push the pawn to B3. Now the knight came to D5 to attack the bishop on E3. Maybe Magnus have prepared this line, but here Rapport don't know what to continue in this position, so he just plays the move bishop to D6 after a 20 minutes gap, and Magnus didn't prepare this line. Maybe he just think what to do in this position and he just goes for his preparation, that is he puts his queen to C1. He also thought for something of 15 minutes. You can see the timings here, that is before the move you have got 1 hour 38 minutes, and after playing the move queen to C1 he's just got 1 hour 15 minutes, that is 18 minutes he have think for this move. He continues with this preparation here. Now he just pushes the pawn to B5 and supports the C4 pawn. Now Magnus just pushed the pawn to B3, and the pawn can't be accepted here, because if he captured here we can just capture the knight and deliver this check here, and he will be a piece down in this position. So He can't capture the pawn here. So Rapport plays the move bishop to b7 and supporting the knight on c6, so that now he's preparing to capture the pawn on b3. Now Magnus just captured the pawn. He captures back with his queen now. Now he just moving his knight to take his knight to d5 square and asking the bishop back to move. So he just attacked the knight in this position. As per plan, he goes to d5, attacking the bishop. He doesn't want to trade the bishop to the knight, so he just puts his bishop to g5, pinning the knight on f6. If the knight moves, the queen will be dropped. So he just castles in this position. And now Magnus just develops his queenside knight to d2. It actually blocks this bishop to coming back. That is, if we come here, the knight will just attack this bishop and triple our pawn. Here also the same case, it will just attack and triple our pawn. So that here Robert just attacks our bishop. He can't go to h4. If so, the g5 will come and trap the bishop in this situation. So he just captures the knight here. Rapport captures back with this knight in this position. And now Magnus want to put his rook, that is, put his two rooks on the two open files in this situation. That is, b file is open and c file is semi-open in this situation. So he want to shift his rook to queen side. So Magnus plays the move rook to c1, and Rapport was just seeing a good place for his knight to maneuver in this situation. Maybe you're considering the b6 square for his knight. But before that, Magnus just want to attack the pawn on a7, and here Rapport just plays the move c5. Here one of the interesting variation to show. If Magnus captured this pawn, Rapport will capture it with his knight here. And if Magnus captured the pawn here, Rapport can just trap the queen by playing the move rook to a1. Rook to a8. The queen can't move. This move is covered by his queen, and this all is covered by the rook, and this is protected well by the knight. The queen is trapped. Whether the queen have to give up for the rook or the knight in this situation. But Magnus didn't fall for this. He didn't capture the pawn on c5. He just captured the pawn on a7. Now actually the bishop just captured the knight here. Here the best move is to play the bishop to d5 and keep the bishop pair in the situation. It will be good for black in the situation, but Rapport just don't want to keep his bishop pair. He just trades for his knight. Now Magnus have to decide whether to capture with his knight or his bishop. But capturing with his knight actually a good move, because when the pawn is captured on d4, we can just capture back with our knight. But Magnus thought of capturing with his bishop so that it have a control on the a8 square, so that rook can't attack the queen in this position. So Magnus thought like that. Now Rapport just captured the pawn on d4, and Magnus don't want Rapport rooks to come on the second rank in the situation. So he just pushes the rook to a2, and also keeping the idea that doubling up on the c file or putting the rook, double the rook on the a file and start pushing the a pawn in the situation. And after that, Rapport just plays a series of mistakes in this game, which actually leads to a somewhat complicated positions in this. Starting with playing the move queen to e7, so that Magnus is just threatening the pawn on a3. So Magnus just start pushing the outside passer here, that is pushing his a pawn to a4, and this is also not a good move. He just plays the move rook to d8, and Magnus just captured the pawn on d4, and now also he just puts a rook to attack the queen in this situation. This is also not great. Instead, you have to play the move, that is he have to put his knight to e5 and asking and he needs to trade the bishop in the situation, because as you see the a pawn is having the 8 square is covered well by the bishop, so that the a pawn will be just want to travel to a7 and it can easily promote in the situation. The knight have to trade the bishop in the situation, but Rapport missed it. I will show you the line in this variation. If he plays the knight here, the queen will just move back, because the bishop will move and create some sort of attacks on the queen. So queens don't want any discoveries in the situation. He want to move back, and we can just capture the knight in the situation, so that the a8 square is not guarded by the bishop. So it will be easy for us to stop the a pawn in the situation. Instead, what happened in the game is not that great to see. If this line was continued like this, yeah, we will attack this bishop. We will just develop the knight and attack. The queen attacks the rook here, so we have to move the rook forward, and the rook comes here, actually putting some pressure on the a5 square, so that the pawn can't push forward. This line may be continued like this, but in the game, Rapport just plays the move rook to b4 and attack the queen, which is not that great. As you see, it just gives a +3 advantage by the engine in this position. Now Magnus just takes his queen back to c3 and preparing to push the pawn, pushes a pawn to the queen, and Rapport need to do something. He can't play some casual moves because the a pawn is so strong in the situation, but he again doing a series of mistakes in the situation, which leads to a blunder. He now again mistakenly played the move knight to b6. Now it allows Magnus to push the pawn to a5, and now Rapport just thought of pinning the pawn here by playing the move queen to a7, so that the pawn can't capture the knight in the situation. If the knight is captured here, this rook will be dropped. Seems like it is a good position to play on, because we can also push the pawn to b7 and play this game. It is seemingly good for white, but there is a major advantage in this position to play the move, because Magnus has spotted a good move in this situation. That is, he actually pins the knight here. Rapport just wants to pin the pawn here, but Magnus just pins the knight here, and now Rapport plays the move bishop to e7. But actually, in this position, we need to play any move is not good for black, but this is somewhat okay to play on for black, because if we place the move, I will show the lines in this variation. We will just want to protect our rook, because we need to capture the knight here. The rook may attack the queen here. We will just capture the knight. The rook captures our queen. We capture the queen here. The rook will capture the rook here, and we will just promote it to queen, and the rook will capture back. We will capture that, and he will get this knight, but we will get this bishop. That is, if the knight is accepted in this variation, we will just give the check and pick up this bishop in the situation. There will be a piece up, but in the game it is worse than what we are shown now, because after he plays the move, Magnus just supports his a2 rook, so that he want to capture the knight here. He just supported with the move rook to c2. Now he is preparing to capture the knight with the pawn. Rapport thinks that it is better to attack the queen now. He goes for a counter attack by playing the move bishop to g5, but Magnus just plays the move queen to c5, and here the bishop has no time to capture the knight. We will just capture here, and it is too much pressure, and we will just capture that bishop also. That is so much lines on this variation. Now Rapport thought that he will just repeat the moves in this situation, so Rapport placed that bishop to e7, thinking that Magnus will go back to e3 so that he can just play the move bishop to g5 and repeat with the moves, goes for some drawish variation. But here Magnus spots a accurate move in this variation. I give you few seconds, you can try it by yourself. I hope you have found this move, that is, we need to capture the knight here. Actually, you have to capture the knight, but we can also, Rapport can also capture the queen in this variation, but we will just capture his queen and the bishop will capture the pawn. We can just pick up the bishop here, and now you count the material. Rapport will have only 2 rooks, but Magnus will have 2 rooks and bishop and a knight against it. So it is not accurate to play in this way line. So in this line, Rapport just captured the rook here. Now Magnus just pick up the bishop in this variation and attacking the rook on d8. Now Rapport just captured the rook on c2 and Magnus captured the rook on d8 and give him a check. The king goes to h7 and now Magnus just pushes the pawn forward to b7. As you see, Rapport has a rook and a queen against the bishop, knight and the queen, and this pawn on b7 is too dangerous to play on because the next move it's going to be pawn is promoted to a queen, and as you see the knight is guarded by the queen and the bishop guards the b7 pawn, and there is no point in playing this variation further on. So Rapport resigned the game and Magnus won the game in this situation. And as per the points here, Magnus has just 4 points scored 4 points out of the 6 rounds. And that's all for today. We'll see you in the next video. If you like this video, hit the like button. Keep supporting this channel. Thank you for your support. This is NaveenPrabhu signing off.